time last year. This is the second edition. For the opening program, we had actually planned Professor T. N. Krishnan's talk, but unfortunately he called us this morning. He's suffering from a very bad cold and wheezing and sore throat and all that, so he's unable to make it. So I must, right at the outset, express my deepest appreciation and thanks to Dr. Sriram Parasuram for so graciously stepping in at the last minute and agreeing. Giving a lecture it's not a matter of triviality. So, but of course he is one of the best in the business. So I took the liberty of asking him, and he readily agreed. So we welcome Dr. Sriram Parasuram and welcome all of you also to this little festival. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you have an enlightening and enjoyable evening.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Ellarkum Namaskaram. I was looking forward to hearing Professor T.N.K. today. Because the extent of work and experience and mastery that he has over this idiom of the Raga Alapana, and the absolute ease and command that he has, is something which is unrivaled, at least among living doyens of Carnatic music. I say that because the great good fortune that he has had in accompanying all the great stalwarts, right from Aryakudi sir to the previous and present generation, because the idea of a little less. The idea of Manodharma in Carnatic music is not a subject of instruction. Nobody actually teaches, no guru actually teaches that this is how you do Manodharma. The music student, the musician, assimilates and learns it over a long period of time, starting by imitating, then putting one's own thought, observing, learning, and intuitively absorbing the method of a Manodharma. This obviously takes a long time. As violin accompanists, we have a trump card. We are forced, when we are accompanying top vocalists, we are forced to listen to them very, very carefully in terms of proportion of the Alapana, in terms of the style of the Alapana, in terms of the range that the Alapana occupies, also in terms of the idiosyncrasies of the main artist. We have to be able to echo that in some manner. So to that extent, our learning takes place to a great extent on stage. For violin accompanists alone, this is a good fortune that is only available to violin accompanists, not available to a vocalist. That is why you will see that many of the very good violinists are probably better musicians than the leading vocalists. I'm just stating fact, because the opportunity that we have to learn is much, much more. From my little experience, from my humble experience, playing for, say, M.D. Ramanathan sir, D.K. Jayaraman sir, T.L. Sheshagopalan sir, T.B.S. sir, T.R. Subramaniam, Balamurali, D.K. Pattammal, இவாளுக்கெல்லாம் வாசிச்சு அந்த கச்சேரிகள்ல நான் கத்துண்டது ஏராளம். So that opportunity is not there for Anuradha or anybody else. For any singer that is not. So why I begin by saying is that probably the violin accompanist is the best person to talk about Manodharma, because we have to respond to it on stage. Anyway, coming to the topic today, I didn't have much time and I'm also not well. But anyway, it's a very casual, non-theoretical discussion today. Structuring Raga Alapana, right? Structuring Raga Alapana. Like I told you, this is never taught. We don't think about it actually. In a sense, there is no conscious, what is called cognitive thinking about how am I going to do an Alapana. It's never been the process in our teaching system. You listen to Varali thousands of times, and then when you sing and play Varali, it just flows through you. And as you think deeper, as you mature as a musician, then Varali also becomes more mature. That is the process. Now and then, Eda Periyava, Guru, Amma Appa எல்லாம் கரெக்ட் பண்ணுவா. இல்லையே இது கொஞ்சம் சுபபந்துராலி மாதிரி இருக்கேன்னு சொல்லுவா. Then you correct yourself. Or if you're doing Mukhari, if it reminds my father of a Bhairavi, he'll say, illa seri illa kekkaradhukku Mukhari mari illa. So then we correct ourselves. But there is no formal method to teaching Raga Alapana. That is also the reason why every Alapana of every great artist is different. If we had a method, then it's going to be they are going to be, Xerox copies of each other, most probably. That is the logical way. But we have had such giants singing the same raga in such different ways. That is because we don't have a method. The method is up to the individual artists. But then, when we look back, after having played Alapana for a decent amount of time, I can look back and see what actually is involved in the process. Correct? I can go back and analyze and see what is actually happening. It's like post-scripting. You do something and then you look at it and then examine and analyze it. So that is exactly what I've done since today afternoon. I was trying to think as to what is actually happening when I do an Alapana. At least the process of Swara, Kalpana Swara has a certain method, has a certain kind of padipadiya, Aryavartan Talathla first தொடங்குறது, 5 அக்ஷரத்துல முக்தாய்ப்பு கொடுக்கிறது, 3 அக்ஷரத்துல, 7 அக்ஷரத்துல, அதுக்கப்புறம் ஒரு ஆவர்த்தனம் ஸ்வரம், கீழ்கால ஸ்வரம், மேல்கால ஸ்வரம். You have a certain methodology to it. But Alapana is totally in the dark. So talking about a method in Alapana is little difficult because there are no standards. But anyway, I have just noted down some points we will share and we will. I was thinking that Alapana is like a story. So just like a story has a narrator, the narrator is the artist. And just like a story has all good stories, not some of these modern stories where you don't know where you're going, you don't understand the story. But all good stories will have a beginning. It will have a section where the plot or the characters are introduced. And then it will have a middle where the story and the characters are developed. And then it will have an end. It will have a climax where the story reaches a peak point where a lot of activity happens, and then there will be a conclusion. Yeah, so that is a general path that a story takes, and that is why we enjoy it. There is a sharing of a particular movement, a beginning, a middle, and an end. If you are watching the World Championships in chess, you will realize that even though Anand excelled in the beginnings, in what is called the openings, Anand is a master of the opening, but then Carlsen was a master of the end game, right? How how many of you watched World Champion? யாருமே பார்க்கலையா? பாத்தியா? Okay. So his mastery of the end game was so fascinating. So அதே மாதிரி தான் செஸ்ல எப்படி there is an opening and there is a response to the opening, then there is a middle game and then there is an end game. So அதுலயும் ஒரு story telling தான் இருக்கு. So an Alapana also tells a story. As the artist, I have to be able to tell the story very effectively. I have to introduce the raga, I have to develop the raga, I have to take it to a point where the activity gives a sense of thrill and climax to myself and the listeners, and then I have to finish it convincingly. So in the process irunda idha alapana namakku actually nama kekkiradhu nama enna rasikrom namakku chelappo theriyadu ஏன் நமக்கு ஒரு பர்టిక్యులர் alapana ரொம்ப பிடிக்கிறதுனா இந்த எலிமெண்ட்ஸ்லாம் ரொம்ப பேலன்ஸ்டா இருக்கு. Now this can be not necessarily a long story, it can be a 1.5 page story also. MSG சார்னா ஆலாப்பனா பிராக்டிஸ் பண்ணுவார். எப்படின்னா அரை நிமிஷம் ஆலாப்பனா. பிகாஸ் சிலப்போ மெயின் ஆர்டிஸ்ட் வந்து 2 நிமிஷம் பாடி விடுவா. He has to respond in less than 1 minute. That is the dharma. He has told me personally, when I was a small boy of 8, when he heard me play, he told me, you practice alapanas, half a minute alapana, 2 minute alapana, 5 minute alapana, 10 minute alapana. Now when I think back about it, it's just like a story. A very short anecdote, right? Or a medium sized short story, or a big short story, or an essay, or even a novel. Ragam Tanam Pallaviki Parra Alapana vandu expansive. It's like a big novel. Are you with me? And in the parallel, because Alapana vandu adile enna structure namakku theriyanum first. So in the elements ella irukana vadla. Basically, now once you as a musician, once you know the elements very well, then you can also break them. We've had very great artists who don't stick to this formula, but we always have to begin with a formula. Only after you master the formula you can break it. Otherwise it is not classical. Classical music believes in mastering the tradition and then you break it if your artistic instinct tells you to do that. Otherwise it is chaos. Otherwise it is modern. We call it fusion. Yeah, where you break everything and then we call it fusion. So so let us begin. I am going to keep this very open-ended.
The story level, Swaras, the characters, and the Gamakas are about the roles.
Exactly. Swaras வந்து ஒரு படியா நம்ம எப்படி டெவலப் பண்றோமோ characters அந்த ராகத்துக்குள்ள phrases also are characters. Swaras thanas are characters. Gamakas are the transitions and embellishments. You know, the settings. Story ku oru setting irukum. So and the setting வந்து இந்த gamakas anuswaras எல்லாம் அந்த setting அழகுபடுத்தும். சினிமா ட்ரையா எழுதிட்டு போனா யாரு ஸ்டோரி படிக்க போறா? அந்த ஸ்டோரியில அழகுபடுத்தணுமே. அந்த ஸ்டோரியை அழகுபடுத்துறது வந்து இந்த gamakas இந்த anuswaras எல்லாம். பட் நம்மளுக்கு வந்து ஒரு பெரிய ஒரு பொக்கிஷம் இருக்கு. We are not creating the story in a vacuum. Namulta, we have the music student, the musician has a lot of material already at hand. Now what is this material? This material are all the existing compositions that we have. Strictly speaking, there is no original thought in a raga alapana. There is only a particular interpretation of what the raga is. You are not creating anything new. So that there is a difference. So we have all these great kritis, these varnams, these all the compositions that we have heard. Adile irukra material da nama eduthu nama kind of restructure pandrom. Basic ah paatha adu develop pannalam, adu extend pannalam. But the basis of my knowing a Kalyani or any music student knowing a Begada or a Kedar Agola or a Latangi or a Charukesi, everything, almost everything is from what he has studied in terms of kritis and varnams and geetams. Adinalda nama vande firstly nama ராகம் மூலமா தான் நம்ம வரிசைகள் பண்றோம், கீதங்கள் பண்றோம். கீதங்களே நம்ம வந்து we introduce the idea of Malahari, the idea of Mohanam, the idea of Kalyani, the idea of Shuddha Saveri, right? இந்த வர்ணம்லாம் நம்ம இந்த கீதம்லாம் படிச்சிருப்போம் இல்லையா, நம்ம ஸ்டேஜில் கேட்கறல, பட் மியூசிக் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் இதெல்லாம் கத்துக்கலாம். அதுக்கப்புறம் வர்ணம் ஸ்டேஜில் we get to understand more number of ragas and a little more terms in terms of content. Material நிறைய இருக்கும் வர்ணத்துல. In fact, varnathla வந்து the amount of material for raga is immense. You take some of the Chaukakala varnams, Pada varnams, Kalyani, Riti Gaula, Kamboji, Shankara varnam, Kannada. The entire raga is there in those varnams. But then we have to study it not like just mug it up and reproduce it. We have to study it with the awareness that this varnam is actually teaching me the raga. Correct? The varnam is not just a beautiful thing to listen to, it is actually the source from which I learn the raga. Pardon me for talking like a school teacher, but I feel that this is something which we have to understand. That and the kritiyo varnathliyo adu vandu summa rasika kudiya oru vishayam illai, it is a source for the raga itself. So அந்த சென்சிட்டிவிட்டியோட படிச்சா, அந்த சென்சிட்டிவிட்டியோட கேட்டா, அந்த ராகத்தில் இருக்கிற விஷயங்கள்னா என்னது? இப்போ ராகத்தோடு இன்ஃபேக்ட் ஹிந்துஸ்தானி மியூசிக்லாம் ஆரோகணம் அவரம் கூட சொல்லிக் கொடுக்க மாட்டான், ராகம் சொல்லிக் கொடுக்கறது. They don't teach the aroha avroha. Whereas the Carnatic music nowadays we think that if we know the aroha avroha we know the raga, but there is nothing farther from the truth. If you know the aroha avroha, you know only the aroha avroha. You don't know anything more than that. The raga is a much bigger domain. So இந்த ராகத்துல நமக்கு தியரிட்டிக்கலா நிறைய விஷயங்கள் இருக்கு, பட் அது எல்லாமே நம்மளுக்கு தேவையில்லை. At this stage, இப்போ ஞாசஸ்வரா சொல்லுவா ஒரு ராகத்துல, or சங்கீத சம்பிரதாய பிரசன் சஞ்சாரா சொல்லுவா, சஞ்சாரா, or they will say அம்சஸ்வரா, or அல்பத்வ பிரயோகா, பௌத்வ பிரயோகா. இது மாதிரி தியரிட்டிக்கல் திங்ஸ் இருக்கு, பட் இதெல்லாம் நமக்கு தேவையே இல்லை. ஆக்சுவலி கேட்கிறவாளுக்கோ இதெல்லாம் தெரியாதே நிறைய பேர் நல்லா ராகம் பாடி போயாச்சு, இந்த தியரி எல்லாம் டீல் பண்ணாம. Why I tell this? Because இந்த கிருதி மூலமாவோ வர்ணம் மூலமாவோ இந்த எலிமெண்ட்ஸ் are intuitively learned. Like how we learn a language. We don't learn a language by learning the grammar, right? We learn our mother tongue by speaking it again and again, by being very intimately acquainted with it. So அந்த acquaintanceல தான் நம்ம ராகத்தை எப்படி லாங்குவேஜ் கத்துக்கிறோமோ அதே மாதிரி தான் ஒரு ராகத்தை கத்துக்கிறோம். ஒரு தோடியில ஒரு 5 கிருதி, ஒரு ஸ்வரஜதி, ஒரு வர்ணம், ஒரு tukra, அப்படிதான் கத்துண்டா we learn different aspects of the raga. And then a stage comes where you think you know the raga well. At least you have the picture of the raga in your ears, you have the sound picture, you know how the raga moves, what are the gamakas of the raga, எந்த ஸ்வரத்துல நின்னு அந்த கிருதியில எங்க அந்த ராகம் பிகின் ஆகுது, எங்க phrase end ஆகுது, எந்தெந்த ஸ்வரத்துல நின்னு டெவலப் பண்ணலாம், இதெல்லாம் அந்த கிருதியே உங்களுக்கு சொல்லி கொடுத்துடும். It's very intuitive learning. அதனால தான் நம்ம பெரியவாலாம் கிருதி நன்னா கத்துக்கணும், வர்ணம் நன்னா கத்துக்கணும் இன்சிஸ்ட் பண்ணது. சும்மா புக்ல பார்த்து இன்னைக்கு கத்து நாளைக்கு பாடுற மாதிரி கிருதி விஷயமே இல்லை. Actually kriti is the பொக்கிஷம், it is a treasure. That is why we have insisted on that. But sadly we have to reinstate that, because today we don't give the kriti that kind of value. But I think the framework of a raga develop panna kriti nanna theriyum. So for example, there are basically 5-6 different kinds of ragas. This is a very convenient, it's not a theoretical classification, but there are, for example, there are what are called the Rakti ragas. Rakti ragas na அந்த ராகத்துல ஒரு phrase பாடினாலே அந்த ராகத்தோட ரக்தி வந்து வெளிப்படுறது. ஒரு முகாரி, ஒரு ரீதி கவுளை, ஆனந்த பைரவி, ஆரபி, நாட்டை குறிஞ்சி, இந்த மாதிரி ராகங்கள், தன்யாசி, இந்த மாதிரி ராகத்துல வந்து ஒரு ஃப்ரேஸ் பாடினாலே நமக்கு ஹோல் ராகம் ரிவீல் ஆயிடுறது. That is the ரக்தித்வம், ரஞ்சகத்துவம் of that raga is so unique. இந்த ஒரு ஃப்ரேஸ்ல ரிவீல் ஆகுது. So these kind of ragas require you to become very intimate with the phrases of that raga. Then there are Gana ragas, long elaborate ragas which have so much scope, like a Todi, Kamboji, Kalyani, Bhairavi, Shankaraparanam. இதெல்லாம் வந்து நம்ம அதுக்கு ஒரு லிமிட் இல்லாத ஒரு பாசிபிலிட்டி, பொட்டன்ஷியல் இருக்கு. ஸோ இந்த ராகங்களோட அப்ரோச் வில் பி டிஃப்ரெண்ட். ரக்தி ராகாஸ் மாஸ்டர் பண்ற அப்ரோச் வில் பி டிஃப்ரெண்ட். அதுல எப்படி ஒரு ராகா ஆலாபன ஸ்ட்ரக்சர் பண்றோம் வில் பி டிஃப்ரெண்ட். இட் ஹாஸ் டு பி டிஃப்ரெண்ட். Then you go to some raga like which has more of scalar possibilities. A raga like Charukesi, Latangi. இந்த ராகங்கள்லாம் நமக்கு வந்து நிறைய scalar combinations. Scalarனா note wise combinations, dhatu combinations, alankara combinations, you know, இந்த மாதிரி combinationsல நமக்கு வந்து ராகத்தை we can think about the raga. Then there are of course certain ragas which are new to the classical idiom. இப்போ ஒரு நார்த்ல இந்த borrow பண்ண ராகா, ஒரு தேஷ், ஒரு சிந்து பைரவி, ஒரு மாண்ட், இந்த மாதிரி ராகாஸ்ல வந்து we have to have a slightly different approach. Correct? So அந்த ராகா டைப் நம்ம ஐடென்டிஃபை பண்ணி இந்த ராகா டைப்புக்கு என்ன வேணுமோ அது நம்ம வந்து அப்சார்ப் பண்ணி then we present the raga. So if you take a raga like Ananda Bhairavi, ஆனந்த பைரவியில நான் நெதுலூரி சார்ட்ட கொஞ்சம் கத்துட்டேன் ஆனந்த பைரவி எப்படி பாடணும்னு. அப்ப ரீசெண்டா when I had gone to Visakhapatnam, I spent some time and he taught me this raga. Taught me, I knew the raga, but then he wanted to share some of his insights. So the set of compositions that he knows, he knew, are very different from the set of compositions that I have learnt. So our approaches to the raga were slightly different. But then, that is what it reveals to me, that அந்த ரக்தித்துவம் நம்மளுக்கு வந்து கரெக்டா புரிஞ்சுக்கிறதுக்கு அந்த ரக்தி phrases என்னெல்லாம் பாசிபிள், அதுக்கு we need to know at least 4-5 compositions in that raga. Because நம்ம இமிட்டேட் பண்ணா நம்மளுக்கே கன்வின்சிங்கா இருக்காது. ஆக்சுவலி ஆனந்த பைரவியில இருக்குன்னா ஒரு 20 phrases தான் இருக்கு. I challenge anybody to sing an Ananda Bhairavi outside those 20 phrases. It will be a combination of those 20 phrases, it will be an interpretation of the 20 phrases. Avladha. But basically that's what the raga is. But I don't mean to say the raga is limited. The raga is infinite. But on the 20 phrases, how you make it intimate, how you learn to negotiate the phrases, how you learn to structure the raga with those phrases is what makes it very unique. ஒரு தடவை நம்ம ஆனந்த பைரவி வாசிக்கிறது அதே மாதிரி தான் ஃபீல் இருக்கும். T.N. Krishnan sir is a very good example of this. The consistency with which he delivers some of these Rakti ragas in every concert of his reveals that he knows the Raktitva, and the Rakti phrase la romba mastery irukku. It won't sound repetitive. Actually, it will sound fresh every time. It's like because the thing of beauty which you encounter again and again will not cease to be beautiful. Only something which is made up and imitated will seem boring. But actually the unmya and the phrases that nama enjoy panni rasichu present panna, it will still seem same. So Ananda Bhairavi na, if you take Mari Vera, Himachala Tanaya, Kamalambam, Ettani Tanduttai, Tyagaraja Yoga Vaibhavam, இந்த 5-6 கிருதி எனக்கு ஒரு மாதிரி தெரியும். So இந்த கிருதியில இருந்து நான் எப்படி அதை ஸ்ட்ரக்சர் பண்ணுவேன். So very simple. How you begin the raga? Let us go to the beginning of the raga, right? Like I told you, we will just, this is going to be a very superficial cholamate. It's a very primary level talk of raga structure. Raga structure at different levels we can have different approaches, you know. What have I done here? I know that 90% of the compositions in Ananda Bhairavi begin on Panchama, or within 2 seconds they are going to Panchama. So the Panchama is the place where the Raga begins. There are exceptions, but generally speaking, when Tyagaraja composes 28 compositions in Sankarabharanam, they are going to have departures. But if you look carefully, there are going to be very, very similar things also in it. Correct? So, and the Kriti Panchamath Poliya Sonna, that is an exception. The rule is, if I just play in the phrasing, in Vaschale, Paginale, 90% of you will know is Ananda Bhairavi. I have experienced this many times. Na kekarchiye first note liye namakku anda enna note adukapram varudhu theriyamale adu vandudum. That is because the beginning is a very clear indicator. So for a music student, it is a fail-safe approach. You will never fail. But of course, if I know the raga well, even though it will begin on Panchama, I will have an imagination and a creativity and a musical spirit in me. I will not play the same thing every time. But it will be almost the same thing. Correct? Because it has to always, Ananda Bhairavi has to go. I cannot go somewhere else. Every note of the raga has to be Ananda Bhairavi. Even an experimental note, even a newness in the raga has to be Ananda Bhairavi. So Nedumari sir, in the phrase 1 hour சொல்லி கொடுத்தாரு எனக்கு. Because Ananda Bhairavi has probably surely come from the folk melodies of Andhra Pradesh. So you will find Ananda Bhairavi in Aravali all over Andhra Pradesh. In their Adhyatma Ramayana Kirtanalu, in their Annamaya Kritis, nariya in Ananda Bhairavi resonate pannide irukku. So we can make out that it's a melody which is very close to them. So Paluke Bangaramayana, when it is set, though Balamurli sets it in Ananda Bhairavi, it has a resonance with what the culture is. So, Paalindi correct, immediate saak varudhu. That is the Varnamit of folk. And I am konja deepa pore. But anyway, so this phrase, he said we can begin the raga like this. அந்த ஸ்ட்ரக்சர் சேம் தான். பால தொடங்கி சாக்கு வந்து அழகா நிஷாதத்துல அந்த ஃப்ரேஸை முடிக்கும். கரெக்ட்? So இதுல 1 hour he will keep going. அவரோட மெத்தட், you know, if you heard Nedumari sir's creativity, ஒரு ஃப்ரேஸை வச்சு அதை குறைஞ்சு அது சுத்தி புதுசா வந்துருக்கும். It's one of the creative methods that he follows. It's a methodology. அவரோட மோகனம் கலரப்பி எல்லாமே பார்த்தா அந்த இடத்தை விட்டு போக மாட்டார் அவர். அந்த இடத்தை சுத்தி நிறைய, இட்ஸ் லைக் ஒரு blade of grassல இருந்து he will generate 100 blades of grass. That is a method. So எல்லாமே வந்து பாட்டு சாதா மூவ் ஆகுது. So very firm opening. I am taking one raga and demonstrating what is an opening of a raga. Okay. இதே வந்து is immediately it is Bhairavi. Sorry, Bilahari. So இந்த கால தொடங்கி ஒரு சர்க்கிள் கொடுத்து பஞ்சமத்துக்கு போகும். If you take Paridhanam Ichite or many of the compositions, you will find that அந்த ஒரு போய் ஒரு சர்க்கிள் அடிச்சு பாட்டு வருது. It immediately reveals the raga. You have to, a good musician will not toy with his listeners. Maybe once in a while, keep them guessing. But immediately அந்த ராகத்தை reveal பண்றது வந்து ஒரு தர்மா. நிறைய பேர் அந்த தர்மத்தை காப்பாத்துறா, நிறைய பேர் தர்மத்தை வேண்டாம் வச்சிருக்கா. But that's okay. That's a different talk. So அந்த ஒரு flash விட்டு பஞ்சமத்துக்கு வரும். Once you have revealed the raga in a structure, half your job is done. I'll tell you the psychology of the listener. The listener is never listening to you. Do you know that? No, this is serious stuff. The listener is never listening to you. The listener is listening to some music in his or her head. So when a chit comes for a Kure Ondrumillai, do you think they want to listen to you sing it? No. They want to revel in a memory of having listened to some recording of that. So even if you play or sing that Kriti quite mediocrely, they will have a good time. Because they are not listening to you. This has been proved in studies in the West, that people listen to things which they have listened to in the past in their heads. So the act of listening is actually an act of recalling. This is perception studies. Act of listening is actually act of recalling. Adinalaga we like to listen to popular compositions. Why does the audience not accept a new raga so easily? Because if they were paying attention to what is happening to the sound picture that is being generated at that moment, they will enjoy it. But there is a problem. The listener always wants to listen to something which he has enjoyed in the past. So that is why Raghuvanshi Sudhambudi or some Dorakuna or we have our favorites. Favorites are not because actually they are favorites. Favorites are because you had experience in the past. So that is the reason. So why I say the job is half done is because if you are able to reach that point in the listener that he knows it is Mukari or Ananda Bhairavi or Bilahari or anything, half your job is done. Then he will be in his own world. No, this is a fact. This is almost a fact. Of course, there are some people who are very attentive and who are living in the moment, and then they will because a lot of our listening is conditioned. So in the framework of raga to introduce pannapra நம்ம வந்து கொஞ்சம் மீடியோக்கரா வாசிச்சாலோ பாடினா கூட தேவை பரவாயில்ல. Because the audience is, the listener is actually reveling in the beauty of the raga anyway, because you have introduced it to him. And the trigger வந்து நீங்க கொடுத்தாச்சு. அந்த ட்ரிகர் நன்னா கொடுக்க படிக்கணும். So that is the first step in raga structure. ராகத்தோட ட்ரிகர் நம்ம கொடுத்துட்டா அதுக்கப்புறம் the job is easier. You don't have to communicate, you don't have to work very hard. If you don't succeed at giving that trigger, then it will take a little longer for the audience to know what you are doing. Correct? Okay. So we won't have much time to go into all the ragas, but I just wanted to present some thoughts. Like for example, Ananda Bhairavi, you can, in fact there is nothing which says you cannot borrow from the Kriti itself. You know? So, Kama, very beautiful phrase in Ananda Bhairavi. So you can borrow this. There is not going to say you borrowed my material. No, he will be happy if you use it. So within Sumana Sara, very beautiful dhatu, patu satupa. Pazabani pamagama, and the apurva prayoga, ellame அந்த கிருத்தில இருக்கு. அதை borrow பண்ணா நமக்கு வந்து ரக்தி ராகத்துல ரொம்ப எஃபெக்டிவா பிரசன்ட் பண்ணலாம். Correct? Then you can observe what are the phrases that are there in the Pallavi of a Kriti, what are the phrases that are there in the Anupallavi of the Kriti, what are the phrases that are there in the Charanam of the Kriti. Each part of the Kriti has a different role to play. The same thing, a Kriti also is a story. It's a formatted story. So, if you see, the Pallavi introduces the Raga. The Anupallavi takes it to the upper registers and develops it, gives more exciting elements of the Raga. So exciting elements la namakku vandu phrases vandu namakku Anupallavi la kadaikum. Raga Alapana pandrche we can use that you can use that structure, and finishing ellame namakku vandu charanathla kadaikum. If you think about the great composers, they have this appoda adu wholesome ah irukum the kriti. Adana kriti ottadu, it will not make a wholesome sense. So kriti la endu namakku raga structure kattukalam. That is my but you have to do it very கொஞ்சம் ஸ்ரத்தையா பண்ணணும். அது சும்மா இமிடேட் பண்ற மாதிரி பண்ணக்கூடாது. அதுல இருக்கிற அந்த லாஜிக், அந்த மெலோடிக் லாஜிக் இருக்கு இல்லையா. ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள், என்னத்தாரு அனுபல்லவி வந்து ஒரு சாக்கு போய் ஒரு ஹை பாயிண்ட் கொடுக்கறது. நம்ம ஆலாப்பனையில அதான் பண்றோம். ஆலாப்பனா ஹை பாயிண்ட் ஆல்சோ when you structure ஆலாப்பனா is going to the உச்சஸ்தாயி சா. இந்த சால நின்று டெவலப் பண்றது ரொம்ப ஒரு it's a very pleasing thing. It also is a place where you can showcase your mastery, your voice culture, your instrumental technique. நிறைய வந்து ஸ்பீட் வாசிக்கிறது, அந்த மேல போய் ஒரு மாதிரி soaring elements of the raga, you all do it around the upper sa. Correct? All of us know that. நம்ம இதெல்லாம் நிறைய intuitive பண்றோம், intuitive கேக்குறோம். பட் நான் வந்து கொஞ்சம் பிரிச்சு சொல்றேன். அதுதான், I am not telling anything which is new. So அது மாதிரி the charanam also has a little more quieter attitude. It has a little calming effect. Like how when you come to the end of in the wave, it has a calming effect. And so on the finish வந்து அது கொடுக்கும். We never end our the difference between an ending in a Western composition and a Carnatic composition is that the Carnatic composition ends in a very resolving piece. நம்ம முடிக்க மாட்டோம், பாடி முடிக்கிறது நம்ம வந்து ஒரு சாந்தமா தான் முடிப்போம். அதே மாதிரி ஆலாப்பனை also our end portions are all soft and very simple. If you look at all the alapanas, the ending 5 phrases they are a preparation for a quiet, a silence. Correct? We don't end with a bang like a Mozart or a Tchaikovsky. We don't do that. It's a different philosophy. We end with a sense of quiet, so that we can begin again. So charanatla and the finishing phrases எல்லாம் நிறைய நமக்கு charanatla கிடைக்கும். Another thing which you have to factor in a Raga Alapana is the composition and balance of slow phrases, Vilambakala phrases and fast phrases, Dvitakala phrases. In the balance namakku vandu correct kadicha, then it's a very effective Raga essay. There are artists who have chosen one over the other. If you listen to an MD Ramanathan's rendition, nariya per ketirukela. In the most flamboyant raga, he will render in very, very peaceful, slow kala. That is his choice. Avarodu voice vasadi, avarodu choice ikku adu pandra. Whereas there are artists who cannot even stay in one place. Eduthodna fast mele inge suthindrom. Adu ava choice. But ideally, a good combination of slow phrases and fast phrases works very well. சில இடத்துல வந்து நின்னு நிறைய ஃபாஸ்ட் ஃப்ரேசஸ் வாசிக்கிறது, சில இடத்துல லாங் பியூட்டிஃபுல் ஏதாவது ராகா சொல்லுங்க, நான் வாசிச்சு காமிக்கிறேன். I will just demonstrate. Say for example, if I take I'll take a scalar raga. Now this is a scalar raga. Enna ragam idu? Nasika. Okay. In the ragathukku vandu there are no particular rules. In the phrase da in the ragatla apdi, because it's a scalar raga. Scalar, I mean I can give vent to my imagination as I want. I can play in whatever combinations. So I can play whatever I want with it. Because it is scalar. Enodu kaiyila thiramai irundha enodu imagination vandu appadi I want to take it, I can take it. But basically enna idhula vandu slow phrases vaasikalam. Because this region it will remind you of so many other ragas. Because inga and the vivaditvam varale. Sani da vavadani sani. We have thousands of ragas which have that phrase. So ingela namak romba Karnataka vaasikalam. And the vivaditvam varaduthula, so called vivaditvam, and the two notes varaduthula, we can generate a sense of excitement, thrill and uniqueness. Right? So and the combination da. And typically raga structure la fast phrases traditionally panchamathla ninnu pannuva, melta sala ninnu pannuva. For example, so sala, I introduce a sa and I establish a standing point at sa. So then so in the Mari, I will play a lot of fast phrases which go and land on sa. எனக்கு எப்படி imagination தோணுதோ I can. But basically fast phrases ending in sa give a good sense of excitement. Excitement is required. I have to keep the attention of myself, and it's also a place where we show our mastery. ஏன் இவ்வளவு சாதகம் பண்றோம்னு ஒரு விண்டோ இருக்குண்டாமா, we have to show. Sachin has to play his square cut to show how hard he has worked. There has to be an exhibition of mastery. That is part of every art process. That will only separate the men from the boys, right? So and the fast phrases பாடுற ஒரு எஸ் கல்யாண் ராமன் பாடுற fast phrases ஏன் அത്ര ஸ்பெஷலா இருக்கும்னா அவ்வளவு சாதனை இருக்குதுல. சாதனை and showing off is not a mark of pride or arrogance. It is just placing in front of you what you can do, what is possible. So or MSG vasikira speed, you know, or Balachandra vasikira chela phrases full of brigas, or Brindama podra chela phrases which are so difficult are all a result of that. So adhe mari ragam finish la structure la kirtha sala ninnu nariya phrases we do a lot of if you take so in the salan a lot of fast phrases I can play. And then again, like I said, the ending is always with a sense of quietude. இந்த குவாய்டிடியூட் தான் ரொம்ப டிஃபிகல்ட். ஸ்லோ பாடுறது தான் ரொம்ப டிஃபிகல்ட். அது பாடுறவர்களுக்கு தெரியும். எல்லாம் பாடி விடலாம், அந்த எண்ட்ல அந்த சா சேராது. கரெக்டா? எனக்கு சேரல, that I have to admit. But it is true, when I listen to many other concerts, avalku serarla. So I have a lot of company. We are in good company. But basically, and the quietude established tha, and the ragathukku oru finish kudukaradhu. If you listen to a KVN, if you listen to MD Ramanathan, the sense of quietude that they give to the finish of the raga is what is so beautiful. Adukapram and the Purna Viram, and the pause vandu is very magical. And the adukapram follow pandra silence is also very important. So, because namlotle the applause also is a recent thing. You know, ragam mudiya poradhu nenikku, the moment we realize raga is going to finish, either in boredom or something, we start clapping. But then I think that the sa has to finish nicely. Only then the raga structure. Anyway, I think I just mentioned 2-3 more points. There are a lot of points, but we don't have time. Some ragas like Mohanam, Kalyana Vasantam, they have a lot of ways in which what I call building blocks and sequences. இது ஒரு phrase. So no original work. Gapada. What I am, the second phrase is just a sequence. It's called a sequence. Riga pa sariga da sari pada sa gari vaga tapa sada sada tapa nabaraga pagabari gari zari pagari gada da ba. So 1 minute I can just do these sequences. Completely, these are simple sequences. So, and the counterpoint. Illame sequences tha. Slightly more complex sequences. So, ragas like இப்போ மோகனம், ஹிந்தோளம், இந்த பென்டடானிக் ஸ்கேல்ஸ் நம்ம சொல்லுவோம், அவுடவ ராகாஸ் இல்லைன்னா இது ரொம்ப எஃபெக்டிவா இருக்கு. ராகா ஸ்ட்ரக்சர் பில்ட் பண்றச்ச இந்த மாதிரி நம்ம எனக்கு வந்து இதெல்லாம் காமிச்சு கொடுத்ததெல்லாம் லால்குடி சார் மாதிரி ஆர்டிஸ்ட் தான். லால்குடி சார் மாஸ்டர்ட் திஸ் ஆர்ட் ஆஃப் சீக்வென்ஸ். சொல்லலே அவர், நான் சொல்றேன். Because he probably doesn't know this word. But in art you don't need to know anything. You don't need to know the vocabulary, you just need to do it. Correct? So sequence solvaru. Appo avaru tillanas eduthundale you can break down all his great creativity into sequential creativity. Nirida bani mani baga mani dari baga. Idu varudhu. Nirida bani first mani baga ma is the sequence to that. So he take all his compositions, he revels in that. That's our trademark. So, in ragas like all out of ragas, Chandrakons, Mohanam, Suddhasaveri, all these ragas, sequences are a very important part of raga structure. And the sequence or method, we have practice panna. The flow. See, finally, when you pick up your violin or when you sit to sing, you are not thinking about what I am going to do next. I will end with that. It is very important to know that I am now only looking back. This is not the method by which I do my raga. But I see that when I do the raga, these are all the things in it. And when a great artist does it, these are all the things within it. Because it is not a thing of additional thing. You cannot just paste it together and say it is Raga Alapana. It flows. You know. So in the elements, Ramanathan is getting anxious. We'll wind up. In the elements, understand panna and the raga structure eppadi. You know how different artists have dealt with raga structure, beginning, middle, end. It's a very, very, very big topic. So we will cover some other aspects. I wanted to cover a lot of different types of ragas. Shankarabharanam, main ragas, Kalyani ella namakku eppadi the structure pannalam. Eppadi male thai eppadi structure pannalam, eppadi madhyas thai eppadi structure pannalam. There is a lot of, so that is why an artist also never gets bored of singing the same raga, because every time intuitively he is trying for something new within the framework, but there is so much of scope for raga structure. Raga structure adukku oru definite oru pattern irukku, but the pattern kulliye there is a lot of possibilities. So I thank Ramanathan for this opportunity, and the last thing I will say is, for a music student, when you develop raga structure, you should develop it to your strengths. நம்ம ஸ்ட்ரெங்த்ஸ் என்னதோ, இப்போ விளம்பம் நல்ல சுதி நிற்கிறது, கமகத்தில் அழுத்தம் இருக்கு, அந்த ஸ்ட்ரெங்த்ல நம்ம ராகா ஸ்ட்ரக்சர் டெவலப் பண்ணலாம். Like for example, I can say very, very clearly that M.S. Gopalakrishnan, his raga structure was based on his virtuosity. T.N. Sheshagopalan sir's raga structure is based on his virtuosity and his imagination. It is not based on a very staid and classical padantara. It is based on his virtue. So everybody develops raga structure based on their strengths. So adu nama ipo chelaver flute la viral adila aval strong strength irukum. So adu base panni raga structure. T. Vishwanathan my guru T. Vishwa's sense of gamakas was very, very beautiful. So Shankarabharanam apadiye adu alegal mariye pointirukum. So the structure also will be like that. It won't be scalar, it won't be virtuosic. So on the strengths ku nama develop panna, the raga structure has a more chance of being effective. Because like I said, we have to a certain extent fulfill the audience expectation in this. Many artists, very, very great artists have not taken cognizance of the fact that raga has to resemble that raga. You cannot say this is my interpretation of the raga, it cannot be somewhere else far away in the Atlantic Ocean. It has to be here. So and the raga thod expectation audience ku irukum. And the expectation fulfill panni nama samarthiyam nama vidvathaiyum kaatradha challenge. So that is what will determine a very, very good raga structure. Thank you so much.
Before we wind up, we can have time for just quick couple of questions.
Yes. See, that is also another thing. Length of the raga context பொறுத்திருக்கு. See, for example, ஒரு சத்தி இருக்கு. For example, you can have a ela sapad with just 2 items and be very full. Correct? Similarly, I have seen Madhuramaniyer sometimes 1 minute raga will be as if it has covered everything. And the Brahma it will create that Brahma, that sense of wonder that everything is covered. Whereas somebody will sing low 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 nu 6 mani neram paaduvaa ragatha, and the ragame pakkathula irukar. So it is a matter of the caliber of the artist. Because Kamboji suppose chinna kriti paadrar vechungo, Subramanian Namaste, adu sandarbhathila see avalla angu taandi poyachu. They don't have to follow any structures. You understand? You master the structure and then you break it. You can also sing. Ipo Amma Ravammakku Ramanathan Krishnan vandu or 40 seconds Kalyani paadirukar. It is amazing. I played for R.K. Srikantan Mama last 2 years back, 1.5 years back. He sang 4 phrases in Madhyamavati and then sang Palinchu Kamakshi. And the 4 phrases I will never forget, because there is no Madhyamavati beyond that. Anda alavukku paadita. See, that is the challenge for the artist. And the chinna time la manasu vecha and the vidvat irunda, the whole can be captured. Like how in the eyes of a beautiful woman you can imagine the whole her beauty. Adhe mari you can. There are competitions varudhu illaya, kanna paathu identify the person sollarliya nama. Yes, that is what. Ada so ariyakudi avaroda and masteroda adu vidvat and the chinna time la vandu kaambodhiya velipaduthiradhu very effectively. It is all it's all a matter of, see, sometimes you can break the structure. Kalyani vandu Ramnath Krishnan mele thodanguvar because Amaravamma anga begin agu. There is a logic. See, there are certain very deeper logics. Eppadi nama or ragatha structure pandrom. Amaravamma vandu mele saala thodanguradhu. So adukku indication kudukkறார் அவர். But for this discussion it was a very basic, na primary discussion சொன்னேன். இப்போ காம்போஜி இருக்கு. காம்போஜி there is such a variety of compositions. அப்ப அதோட என்ன flavor? இப்போ காம்போஜி வந்து கீழ பிகினே ஆகாது. It's an upward moving raga. Not effective according to me. இதுதான் அவர் ஸ்டாம்ப் வரும். So காம்போஜி வந்து மேல போய் அதுக்கு கீழே வந்து திருப்பி மேல போய் ஷைன் ஆகும். இது 4 ஃப்ரேஸ் பாடின அப்புறம் கீழே வரலாம். பட் எடுத்த உடனே அந்த வீரியம், அந்த you have to establish the character of the raga. இதெல்லாம் பாடின அப்புறம் தான் நம்ம we will come to that. Generally, that is effective composition according to me.
One more quick question.
நிறைய levels இருக்கு இதுல. Sorry, but there are a lot of different levels in which you can talk about raga stuff.
Very sorry, we are really running out of time. One more question, sir.
Yes. Yes. Who has to make the effort? God only has to make the effort. That's why I say that every generation gets the music that it deserves. If you don't make the effort, if the audience doesn't make the listeners don't make the effort, how can we sing? If you deserve Maadu Meikum Kanna, you will get that. If you deserve Kamalambam Bhajari, you will get that. It is so simple. I am not judging anybody here. That is what it is. I see that, and it is a very beautiful thing. And don't think it will get lost. A generation will come 20 years later who will cherish all the beautiful ragas. Because it moves in cycles. So, சில ராகம் வந்து திருப்பி வரும். இப்போ தீக்ஷிதர் முடிஞ்ச அப்புறம் I will tell you a fact. After Dikshitar's time, many of these ragas were lost. But then somewhere down the line, Naina Pillai, these people recaptured it. Subbarama Dikshitar recaptured it. Today S.R. Janakiraman recaptures that. All the ragas which are not never heard. Hopefully, he will teach it to some of his students, and some of us will sing them, and some of them you will like and relish. So it is not as if they are gone forever. They are all here. You will get it whenever you deserve it.
Okay, friends, I'm really sorry to cut this short. We have another kacheri coming up. Replacing or stepping into the shoes of a giant like T.N. Krishnan Mama is not.
No, I'm not into anybody's shoes.
But
this is my thought.
I think we have got possibly the best possible replacement at the last minute.
Thank you.
I once again thank Sriram so deeply from the bottom of my heart for for honestly and immediately accepting and standing in for at the last minute. Thank you, Sriram.
Thank you.
At this point of time, there is one person I miss in the front row, and that is Professor T.R. Subramaniam. He passed away tragically a few months back. He was part of each and every program that happens in Shastri, especially for a learning experience like this. whether it's a senior person, a junior student, whoever it is, he would always be there, part of the audience, coming up, giving up his opinions. A real Vidwan, real senior stalwart. We miss him, and that is the reason why this entire festival, this series, is dedicated to TRS Mama. So I'd like all of you to just take a minute to remember him, honor his memory, and once again, thank you all for joining us today, and we will start the next Kacheri in about 5 minutes.